Hello and welcome back to another episode of Even Tacos Fall Apart. I'm MommaFoxFire, and today we're diving into a deeply insightful conversation that I am super excited to share with you. In this episode, I had the privilege of speaking with a remarkable individual about how his journey through grief, resilience, and advocacy has left a profound impact on the world of mental health. I am joined by Adam Parsons, whose story of transformation is nothing short of inspiring. Throughout our conversation, Adam opens up about his personal experiences and the challenges he faced following the loss of his wife. His journey of healing led him to establish a mental health charity that is making a meaningful difference in the lives of many. It's a testament to how personal pain can be channeled into positive change. In today's episode, we'll explore Adam's insights on tackling mental health stigmas, his perspectives on therapy and trigger warnings, as well as his thoughts on the need for a more inclusive and compassionate approach to mental health conversations. Adam's story is a reminder that no matter how difficult the circumstances, there's always a potential for growth, resilience, and hope. I'm excited for you to hear his perspectives and experiences, which offer valuable lessons for all of us. Before we begin, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future episodes filled with candid and honest conversations about mental health, life's challenges, and the power of human connection. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please take a moment to leave a review and let me know your thoughts. Any engagement on your side of things, which means clicking buttons to subscribe or like or typing out a review on any platform, goes a really long way to helping me keep things going. Thank you for being a part of our podcast community, and I hope that you find this episode as enlightening and meaningful as I did. So without further ado, let's dive into my conversation with Adam Parsons. Oops, it's me again. I'm just letting y'all know that this one was recorded a while back, so the audio is not going to be as good quality as it is these days, and you're going to hear a little bit of canniness on the mic, and that is okay because it was recorded a while back before I got the new setup. But just a quick reminder and plug that y'all's continued support is what lets me do things like upgrade my mic. So I want to just shout out everyone who's listening now, everyone who supports this podcast, and say thank you for your support, because that's what allows me to continue increasing the quality, increasing the production, and hopefully you'll be able to hear the difference between then and now in this one. Still a great conversation. So right back to it. So that'll be open. All right. Hello. Welcome back. Welcome to another Mental Health Monday. Happy Monday. I hope your weekend was good. I hope that your week ahead is gonna be good. We are here with a great guest. We are with Adam Parsons of Up for Mental Health. We are going to be talking about grief and also his experience starting a mental health charity. So just a little introduction here. Adam is a mental health streamer, facilitator, podcaster, known online as Up or Up for the Challenge. He's currently studying within the field of mental health and counseling and has worked in the area of mental health facilitation for about 4 years, running university groups, writing in the field of mindfulness, hosting mental health podcasts, and much more. He was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD, at the age of 9. At 15, he was prescribed antidepressants, and despite those helping him to control the darker side of his thoughts, he found that they impacted his greater cognitive function. He has since faced homelessness and severe bouts of depression, but the mental acuity he regained helped him through. In 2019, he lost his wife to brain cancer, and that impacted him deeply, almost meaning that he followed behind her. A promise he made to his wife to help raise money in her memory, combined with his own invisible battles and desire to share his experiences and passion for better mental health care, led him to create the mental health charity Up for Mental Health, which I'm really excited to talk about tonight for sure. His goal is for people to know that they aren't alone, very similar to what we do here, and in his spare time, very non-similar to what we do here. Adam is a martial artist, a marathon runner, and addicted to education. I guess that last part we can hit, absolutely. Always seeking knowledge and wanting to learn. So thank you for joining us today here, Adam. Really appreciate it. I hope that you have a good time with our community here.
Well, hopefully, yeah. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. So I'm going to post some socials here. That's the Twitter, YouTube, podcast, Twitch, and then also the TikTok, Twitter, and website for the mental health charity as well. So some personal side of socials, some business side of socials. And yeah, that's great. We also have a question queue open. If you have a question, please feel free to type exclamation point, follow with your question, exclamation point Q, just the letter Q, follow with your question, and then that'll put into a queue. I'll make sure that we ask it. Okay, that was a lot of talking from me. So just kind of to get us started here, what made you become interested in specializing in mental health 4 years ago when you started?
So, I mean, I think mental health has always kind of been there for me. As you said with my bio, I was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder when I was 9. It's the first of a raft of mental health issues that I've then been diagnosed with since. I only tend to mention OCD and depression because they're the only ones that, let's be honest, the media and society tends to care about, although both badly then represented. So I always kind of had it at the back of my mind. And then through university, it's probably more than 4 years now. That's a slightly old bio. But with university, I got involved in mental health side. It was kind of there. But then when I met my late wife and then found out that she had cancer already, she had recovered from cancer once. And then it was that it was still there. I was going through stuff just before I met her. Actually, the kind of, it's weird to say jokey thing, but the jokey thing I had with her is that the week that we started becoming official was the last time I fully tried to commit suicide. On the Monday, I just, even meeting her, there was too many demons still in my head. And so on the Monday, I tried to end it. Ended up in a massive argument with her because she, of course, did what everyone does: is she called the ambulance and everyone else. And then by the Friday, we were officially together. So the mental health was always kind of there, and then the addition of that, worry and anxiousness of her health just meant that I started looking at more of what I could do within mental health. And because of the fact that I wasn't scared of because at the time I was doing a university degree, I wasn't scared of the reprisal from the university. I wasn't scared of local government. So I felt that if anybody was going to be able to give some kind of voice to those that were suffering, at least in that small circle that I was in, it was likely me, because of the fact that I didn't care what I said to them. I would just tell them, where I knew others were worried, and rightfully worried, about how it would impact back on their mental health, how it would impact on their degree and things like that. And I just went, you know what, I have a degree already. This is out of interest. They can't take anything away from me. They can from you. So let me say it instead. And that's kind of what led to it. And then bit by bit, it's just grown.
Yeah. So you met your late wife in university then?
No, I met her on Tinder. Okay. But I was at university. So I'm still at university. I'm always at university. I think a lot of my friends would say I've never left university since I first went. But I was at university at the time, and so I just kind of it just continued from there. And I actually worked at the university as well. So I started helping implement certain policies into the university so that I could help. One of them being that I became recognised as being able to sign off on people's extensions with mental health. I would be able to have a meeting with them and say whether they should get an extension or not, which was something that wasn't allowed before. You had to have specific things, and I just got the policy changed. I just went, look, we can't expect this from people. We can't expect them to step outside of certain areas that they're dealing with. If they're dealing with depression, everything like that, that doesn't mean they want to go to the doctor and get you a fucking letter. Like they need something else. And so I started doing things with that. But no, I met my wife on Tinder. It does work. Yeah. Every now and again. We met through Tinder like the August, September. We went on our first date in the September, wasn't it? November, December, January, February. Yeah. September. Then we were kind of official from the October. Ish. Then we married in the May. So we married after 8 months. We were engaged after 5. So yeah, that's really cool. So you talked about
constantly seeking to learn and everything, and that you're always at university, right? As your friends are joking. Whenever you say you constantly love to learn, is that something that you really love to learn through reading, or do you continually take courses, or is it something else, or a combination?
It's all of it, yeah. So you can see part of my kind of library over there. But then I'm still doing things. So I've interrupted on some of them, so they're kind of in between. So I've got to go back to them because of everything else that's happening for me at the moment. But I'm currently like in the admin of studying for three master's degrees, one undergraduate degree, and a counselling and cognitive behavioural therapy diploma.
Wow, that's a lot of things at one time.
I get bored. So just to clarify as well, I know because you call degrees diplomas, and the diploma for us isn't. It's lower, so it's not not another degree. It's lower than that. So it's
like a certificate kind of
just beforehand. It's the in between. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, the terminology, you and I talked about that before, like the terminology between the US and the UK and other parts of the world, it's not always exactly the same, so it's good to clarify for sure. Yeah, all right, so on that bookshelf that you've got right there, what's the latest nonfiction book you read that you really loved? And then also, second part of the question, what is your all-time favorite fiction book?
That's harder. That is harder to answer.
Yeah.
Oh, I know which one. Yes, so the latest one that I read that's non-fiction. It is non-fiction for anyone listening. It's called Becoming Batman. And it is, so obviously I'm a martial artist, and it's written by a Canadian professor who is, he's a neuroscientist, and he's also a weapons and hand-to-hand martial arts expert. And he basically goes into the science and the reality of someone being Batman. Like whether it's possible, what kind of stuff would have to happen. He goes into like the genetic dispositions that you'd have to have as a person. Actually, he makes the idea of like, yeah, this is if this was possible, this is how it would be done, which is really weird because it's like bringing a fictional character forward. So yeah, fiction. It's going to be the Jack Reacher series, but I'm
okay.
It's difficult for me with fiction because I don't like fiction that much. The reason I'm dyslexic for one, and I simply cannot imagine in the same way with fiction. So you'll have so many people that, for instance, when Harry Potter came out, they're like, well, that's not how I envisaged Hermione or whatever it is. And I'm there going, what the fuck are you on about? Like it's words on a page. Like I can't. It does not make any sense to me. When I was younger, I just thought people were lying because there was no other explanation. Because what do you mean? It's words. Like I don't get it. Like I can draw and all those kind of things. I have some kind of creativity, but it is not in the imagination thing. So whereas with things like Jack Reacher, they actually at the beginning of the book give you a detailed outline of what he looks like, his weight, his height, like. It kind of gives you something, and it's written in a way that it's quite good to understand. But yeah, I'm not good with fiction. The first book I ever read cover to cover was when I was 27. I think 27, because I did my degree, my first degrees without ever reading a book. I have a very stupid memory that allows that. But it was a book called Prime Minister Portillo and Other Things That Never Happened. It was a book of counterfactuals. And that was the nearest I got to fiction for a very long time.
Wait, okay. So hold on. What was that one called?
Prime Minister Portillo and Other Things That Never Happened.
Oh, there it is.
We have a meeting time thing on this call.
Yeah, I haven't had that happen. Okay, hold on. Yeah, I haven't seen this running out of time message before.
This is the bit we cut out for YouTube.
Yeah, right. Well, if we need to, I'll just reopen the time. Yeah, remaining meeting time. Man, I haven't used Zoom in a long time. I don't know when they changed to that. But that's okay. All right, so those 3 books, I just posted the links in the chat. through Goodreads. Buy them wherever you want. These are non-affiliate links. You can't buy them from Goodreads. That's just where I keep all of my like reading books and stuff. So I try not to share things that it's like, go buy it here. Just go buy wherever you want. It's fine. So a little bit, kind of like that Jack Reacher turn a little bit. This is an audience favorite question. Do you have a serial killer or true crime story that fascinates you?
No,
none.
No, because it's just not a thing. I mean, you could argue there's a fascination idea with Jack the Ripper. That's a general thing in the UK. And, you know, we have Howard Shipman, so we have arguably the first and the most prolific serial killers in the UK. But I don't think it's even a thing in England, if I'm honest. I hear a lot about people in America talk about that as a podcast and all those kind of. I don't see it here. I really don't. I don't think it's not something that I ever really came across anybody interacting with that much. There may be people now going, of course we still do it, but I've never really interacted with it because I don't see the appeal. I don't know. I think they're so badly worded anyway. Because, for instance, all of them will suggest that that they'll use the same nonsensical wording, like, "Oh, well, this person's a psychopath." No,
right?
They're a murderous bastard. That doesn't mean they're a psychopath. Like a head of business is Elon Musk is a psychopath. George, Gates is a psychopath. Steve Jobs was a psychopath. They were, if you tested them, all psychopaths because of the way they act and their interaction with business. But the wording for these things just makes it more dramatic. So I probably subconsciously ignore or reject things like that anyway.
Yeah. And it's not just serial killers, right? Like true crime goes way beyond that. And I think a lot of the interest comes from the psychology behind the mind to say like, all right, we want to understand why this thing happened. A lot of people get into the mental health field because of something that happened to them. And sometimes that relates to true crime and sometimes it doesn't. So yeah, I think that the fascination with serial killers is not necessarily about the killer themselves, but kind of the situation surrounding them, which can get really interesting. Hey, Bite, how are you today? So Bite asked, what is your favorite poem while we're kind of on the topic of books and that kind of thing still?
Favorite poem. Apart from the ones I've written, though. No, I'd probably.
If you've one that you've written and you want to read it to us, I would love that.
I wrote a poem about in memory of my late wife, but I do write poems occasionally. But I think it'd probably be the really cliched one of Rudyard Kipling, If. I think that there is some underlying toxicity in that poem, but not too much. So I think that's probably that, or the very English Philip Larkin. Now I need to know. I'm wondering if this is wondering if the name is what I think it is before I just swear for no reason.
You can swear for no reason. It really does not matter.
Let's get the name of the poem right. Because this one I think is very much for mental health as well. Okay. It's called "This Be the Verse" by Philip Larkin, and it's very short. I'll quickly read it. They fuck you up, your mum and dad. They may not mean to, but they do. They fill you with the faults they had and add some extra just for you. But they were fucked up in their turn by fools in old style hats and coats, who half the time were soppy stern and half at one another's throats. Man hands on misery to man, it deepens like a coastal shelf. Get out as early as you can and don't have any kids yourself, which is a very kind of mental health thing.
Yeah, that's a great one. I mean, and it's so true, like that. We just recently talked about, no, I can't get this to go away. There we go. We just recently talked about generational trauma and how that can play into a family dynamic with another guest. So yeah, that's a really great one. All right. So this says we have 4 minutes and 33 seconds. I think we'll break there, and I'm just going to reopen the room and we'll see how long it lets us go then. So, I will, let's see. I can get you on, let me get your Twitter thing open here. And all right, I'm going to see if I can just reopen surely I have like hold on.
Because you're not a premium member, it's only giving you half an hour, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Which is really spice because we were talking beforehand, but that's fine. We'll only have one more break in it.
All right, let me see, because I thought when I've done these before, it hasn't. Maybe it's because I set it up as a meeting instead of just doing my personal room. Let me send you a link for the personal room. I didn't realize there was a big difference, and we'll be right back with all this.
Speak amongst yourself, Twitch.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, I mean, this should just be, I hit new meeting. Join with computer audio. Y'all get a little glimpse behind the scenes here. It's fine. And now how do I make sure that he can get in here? Uh-oh. I thought there was a way. All right, hold on. Copy. Oh, I see it. Okay. Copy link, copy invite link. I don't know if that works or not. We're about to find out if that works. Oh no, I just moved something on my screen too in the background. Oh Lord. What a mess. Yeah. If y'all have more questions, feel free to add them to the chat. You're welcome to. Okay, admit. There we go. And then I think I can just like make this go away. Yeah. Okay, so we'll see. I didn't do it. Oh no, it didn't close. Close. There we go. All right.
I'm loving the fact that your bot just welcomed me. Hello.
Yes, it did. Absolutely. I automate as much as I can because I can't handle doing things myself. All right, so everybody take a little drink of water. And we're going to get right back into it. So you were diagnosed with OCD, as we talked about in your bio, at the age of 9. Is that something that you still live with today, or did that resolve with time?
No, and I honestly don't believe there is a resolution for OCD. I think there's a forgetting of it. So I've said it before, actually, that with OCD, I think that I had a relatively large time period where it didn't affect me, but I'm not of the opinion that it went away. It's just that I didn't notice it. I forgot I had it, or I tried to forget I had it. And therefore, the weird shit I was doing, I just didn't see it. Everyone else knew it. You know, I've had that with other mental health issues. I think that is the case in general with people, that you don't see the weird stuff you're doing. You don't see things. And if you have a bad day and if you have intrusive thoughts, I wasn't ascribing that to my OCD. I was ascribing it to just having a bad day. But I still have it now. It flares up worse at certain times. It just depends. I mean, the worst thing about OCD is the intrusive thoughts, which is the bit that no one ever talks about, because OCD apparently is just a joke, which really annoys me. It is just that, they turn the light on and off 5 times. I'm like, no, that's about 5% of it. And then 95% of the time, they're in the corner crying, rocking back and forth because they think that if they continue in action, it will massively harm someone, or they think that they have massively harmed someone and then force themselves to forget about it. That's what OCD actually is. That's why there's a lot of issues in a lot of the ways that it's treated, because everyone only treats what they see and not what's behind the curtain.
Yeah, I mean, that's the case with a lot of mental health illnesses also. It's hard to treat what you can't physically manifest, and some things do not physically manifest, and some things will lie dormant even. So my 8-year-old has Tourette's, and that is something that can resolve with age. So we're kind of in he's going to turn 9. Between 9 and 14 is when it theoretically will maybe perhaps either get worse, significantly worse, or resolve. And so it's one of those things they don't know why it happens or anything, but he will go a whole month with very minor tics. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's resolving a little bit, and then they'll be back with a vengeance. And it's one of those things like, it's obviously, it's still there. It's not gone away. It's a neurological illness. It hasn't gone away, but I can't see it. So I can't address it in any way. So I feel like that's the way with a lot of mental illnesses, not just Tourette's, but Tourette's is one that physically manifests always. That's part of the definition. And so it's like the part where if you can't see it, you can't treat it isn't necessarily true anymore. But if you can't see it, you're not going to notice it as much from the outside, not if you have it.
Yeah.
Bite said it was weird watching people play Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice and talk about how weird and distracting the voices were. Like, that's basically just normal for me. Yeah, and Bite, we were talking earlier about being able to, like, hold an image in your head kind of while you're reading and everything. And I think that's another big deal, is that a lot of people struggle with that too, the not being able to visualize or that kind of thing. So, that's...
Yeah, I've always found it very hard. I've then had discussions with people who do the exact opposite and find me just as strange as I find them. Yeah.
So what coping skills did you develop as a result of living with OCD and depression from a young age? And did those coping skills, did they evolve or change as you got older?
Did I have any? I think is probably the question.
Yes.
I think at the age of 9, there was nothing to do. There was no, this is the 90s. There was no one gave a shit, it was, there was no kind of real idea of therapy for that, especially not in England, because we don't do therapy. It's not a thing for us. We have it, but it's not, it's a kind of, you're having it if you're really fucked up. It's not the standard, especially not during the 90s. And that's the early 90s as well. I'm getting old.
We just didn't talk about that shit back then. Like you didn't talk about it at all in the 90s. No, not even.
It wasn't many years since Rain Man had just come out, and that's a shit show of a film. So it just wasn't. I don't think I really had any way of dealing with it. It was just that's why I think me trying to forget it became the norm. Like I say, I think that if anything, that was I suppose a coping strategy of me just going, I'm fine. You have to deal with the weird shit you're seeing me do. I'm fine. It was simple things. I can feel myself do it. You'll notice me probably touch my face and stuff more. It's symmetry that's the only one that's actually continued, because most people don't know OCD can change over time as you get different obsessions, different compulsions. And so it restarted at university when the stairs for the library all went round the same way. I had to stop at every floor and turn back on myself. So, but I don't think I've even had a coping strategy now. I don't really have a coping strategy for my OCD because I just let it happen because I think that's the easiest way, because anything else is just repression for the sake of somebody else's interaction. And I don't give a shit about what they think.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing with a lot of it, because that's behavioralism. I don't really care for behavioralism at all, because it's created to make things nicer for a society that didn't accept that we existed for several decades or several centuries. So fuck them. So in terms of that, I don't, for the intrusive thoughts, I think for most of that, it's just been the case of realizing that they're not true, which is incredibly difficult at times. It's more difficult when your intrusive thoughts tell you you've done something more than if you're going to do something, at least for me. So you kind of have the two sides of it, especially with OCD, in that if there used to be I don't know if you had the kind of rhyme in America, but step on a crack, break your mother's back was a thing, So the difference I would say between someone normally and someone with OCD with that is the person with OCD, it's happening. It's not a rhyme. It's not this is a joke. No. That is what's going to happen if you step on that crack. For those things, I didn't have as much of an interaction with, but the intrusive thoughts about, well, you've done something and then you've just told yourself it's wrong. Effectively, what you're doing is continually gaslighting yourself with OCD.
Yeah.
And that's a lot harder to deal with, because people figure out very quickly that that's what you do, and they just jump on board and gaslight you even more. And that's then very hard for you to realize what version of the past is real, because like what level of scumbag am I? It becomes really with that kind of thing. Yeah. With depression, God knows. When you find a way to deal with it, tell me.
Yeah, I mean, you tell me.
It's literally,
if either of us find it, we'll just contact each other.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've tried so many different things. As you said with my bio, I was on citalopram, fluoxetine, 50 different other things, and where they might work for a small bit, all the stats basically show that they don't work over time. So they work in about, I think it's around 40% of people, and then 20% of those 40% after 1 year, unless you change up the medication. And so I was in one of those that just didn't help after that time period. And when I was on fluoxetine, it messed with me. I couldn't think straight. It lowered libido. It just so many different things that it caused issue with. I found talking therapy incredibly difficult because I had read the same books as them, and like it almost felt like a scene from Good Will Hunting, when all he's doing, when he goes to see those therapists, and all he does is he's read those books and he's just taking the piss out of them. And that's how it felt, because no one came with anything new. They're reading through a fucking script. So I really couldn't get to grips with that, because I'm like, yeah, I know this as well. I could have read this to myself at home. So yeah, I go through still now. I think I go through the let's put up a wall. That's okay. Yeah, that's going to collapse. I'm going to disappear. Right, where's the next wall? And realistically, that's what I still do. I try my best not to, and I try and give myself time and things like that. But I always have depression. It doesn't go away. I suffer from suicidal depression. I've said to people before that I've always, so I do genealogy, and so I know what the biggest killer in my family is. So I've always said there's one or two ways I'm going to die, and that's I'm going to have a heart attack or I'm going to kill myself. That's it. That is the likelihood. One of those two things will get me, because of family history or simply because that's it. Because I wake up every single day annoyed that I'm here, which people always find strange. And they're like, but you're mental health, but that doesn't mean I'm actively wanting to end it right now.
Yeah.
But I'm still pissed off that I'm here, because it's still that idea, among other things, that I'm here, my wife isn't, but just, I don't, it's weird. I have almost the same feeling as people wake up and go, oh, fuck, I've got work today. I wake up and go, fuck's sake, I woke up. And it's a constant feeling like that. And then you just kind of go, right, okay, well, I've got to fucking deal with this today now. And I think I'd probably redirect some of the toxic masculinity that I was brought up with into kind of just beating myself up into it, I think.
Oh, absolutely. So a couple things that you said, and then I want to make sure to get to this question from Byte. So a couple things that you said, you mentioned kind of the growing up and being able to read about stuff and already, have it kind of thrown back at you. Do you think that's where your love of learning kind of started?
I think it probably, so I've always been a big guy. I've been told I look smaller on camera, but I'm 6'2". I'm broad shouldered. I'm a big guy. I've done martial arts since the age of 4 years old. So that's always been me. And especially in the 90s, the idea was you couldn't be two things. You're the big guy, you're the muscle, or you're something else. And I think I vehemently tried not to be the other thing. And so I liked Star Trek. I was still a nerd, but I didn't fit the nerd. So I think that was just part of it there. And then when I started to actually realize that it was okay to be nerdy, simple stupid things, like when I was at school, I once got asked by my teacher, one of my friends in the chess club was getting bullied, and my teacher basically said, look, can you walk him home, because the bullies won't mess with you? I'm like, okay, fine. And then he didn't. So I was like, okay, so I can be both. Like, I'm with my chess friend here, but like I'm also here because I'm the one that will stop the bullies. So, okay. And then I just got into the love of just kind of constantly trying to learn more and more. I mean, it's the torment of Tantalus. It's the want to know everything, even though I know I can't. That doesn't mean I'm ever going to stop trying.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 5'6", so we look the same height on camera.
I keep getting told. I always get told by people, "Yeah, I would have thought you like 5'8". I'm like, what the fuck? Do I need to stand up?
You really can't tell height from this camera. So the other one is your knowledge of just where your genealogy is, and the biggest killer being heart attack in your family. Is that why you love to run?
No, I think so. Running is hard to think of where the running came from. I think I saw the London Marathon when I was a kid, and just went, right, I'm going to do that, because I was a kind of a fat kid at some points as well, and like I went up to pretty high, like 300 pound plus, and so I trained for the London Marathon up until I was meant to do it when I was 18. And then 3 days before London Marathon, I tore the ligaments in my ankle and couldn't do it for another 9 years.
Oh, no.
But I constantly ran. I ended up just going, right, well, that's just going to make me run more. And so, I just got into running more. And I found that actually so many people that were runners, especially marathon and endurance runners, were as fucked up as I am. Something had happened to them or something had happened to a family member. And I think there's two types of people that do it. Ones that actually find some peace in the running, and others, which is probably where I am, which is running away from whatever's trying to find you. It's that idea that there's a demon there, but I can run faster than the demon, so I'll keep doing it. And I think that kind of encapsulated one of the reasons I did it.
Yeah. So Vine says, I don't step on unintentional cracks still. Yeah. Logical me says nothing would happen. But illogical me says, what if it did? Yeah, absolutely. And then she also added this question. How do you feel British mental health care stacks up against American mental health care? Which side of the pond tries to ignore it more? It's a great...
America.
Great question.
You have a mental health care? You have a mental health care?
Not for
I've had this discussion a lot. There is not one single part of any part of the health system, from having a splinter removed up to suicidal thoughts of somebody trying to keep you down, that I would ever swap with America. Not a single part. No. Not any of it. There is no such thing as waiting lists that go beyond you checking on your insurance, which is the main thing, because checking on your insurance in America takes far longer than any of the idea. Put it this way, it's currently 3:00 in the morning here. In 5 hours, my doctor's opens. If I ring them when it opens, I will see my GP that day.
Yeah.
There is no fucking waiting list. It doesn't exist. There's waiting list for surgeries, but that's only for surgeries that are elective. That you don't fucking need them. And mental health care, I don't think we care. I don't think Canada cares or Australia cares. But I think America cares far, far, far less. Yeah. And that's probably the fact that you're not a capitalist nation, you're a productivist nation. Capitalism absolutely looks after the people. Norway's capitalist, Finland's capitalist, despite what, Tucker Carlson might want to say. They are massively capitalist. You're a productivist. You're a productivist nation, which means you're only ever looking for the product. You're never looking for the person. And I think because of that, it's inbuilt that, getting back to work. So, I don't think the mental health care in America, from psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors, all licensed and registered that I know in America, and are very well respected and authored in America, all want to be part of the British psychological.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Because although for us, we're like, it's shit, for all of them, they're like, no, you're not. Like, compared to what we are, you're really not. And that's the thing.
I mean, every time I have Jessica on or any mental health professional, honestly, in America, one of the main things that they talk about is just that the paperwork is a mess. And it's so hard to get their clients to see them consistently and to make sure that they are seeing them as often as they need to without breaking the bank. And that's something that drives me absolutely crazy. But even just to get a referral, we have to, first of all, get a referral for a lot of services. And that's one of the things that doesn't necessarily happen in other countries.
I mean, we can self-refer here to see a counsellor. You will get an appointment within at the latest 4 weeks to have the assessment. Then you'll get this is if I go to a local mental health charity, you'll get 2 free counselling sessions, no charge at all. And then after that, there'll be £15 a session. And I am in one of the richest parts of the country. This is by far one of the richest parts of the country, and it's £15 here. Even in London, where a flat, or apartment that's the size of this room is £1 million. Even there, it'd be maybe £40 for an hour, maybe. And that's after the fact that we've already given you free on top of that as well. So
it makes a huge difference, and I don't think there really is any comparison. Hey, Mondrian, how are you doing? Glad to have you here tonight. So I want to pivot a little bit and talk about some of the grief that you dealt with the loss of your wife. So 5 stages of grief are pretty well known: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, right? So do you feel that you went through each of those stages, and do you think they are linear at all?
I've not gone through acceptance. It happened 2 years ago. No, 3 years ago now, 2019. But there's definitely no acceptance. I've moved house twice, and I still expect her to come through the door. I have her ashes in our combined rings, and I still expect her to come through the door. So there's no acceptance at all. Absolutely not. They're not linear by any means, because I think when you're dealing with it, anger is probably, for me, I've talked about before that everyone has a default emotion. Despite what neurotypicals would like to say, default emotion doesn't mean we all start as happy and then go from there. We're just different emotions that we then work together and we get a weird jigsaw. And for me, my standard default emotion is anger and upset. So when things happened, my first thing was to bawl into tears and to punch stuff. And so that's probably what came first. Bargaining and things like that, I think probably came later, because I didn't know what to do. I needed to do something, the idea of protecting the one you love. And especially as someone who is a martial artist and an instructor, like, I need someone attacks someone you love. You can deal with it. Something, what the fuck do you do against brain cancer? And so, it's the reason I support the charity I do is because brain stress is because it's the charity she asked me to. I literally said to her, what do I do? What can I just, I can't, I'm not a neurosurgeon. I don't know what to do. What do I do? And she just said, help Brains Trust. And that's where I was like, right, done. And that's what I've done ever since. But I've certainly not gone through any kind of acceptance. There is zero acceptance of it. And I think anger is still there, and it's hard trying to even interact with those emotions, because I never know how I'm going to feel when I talk about her, or just day to day. Like, so I'll be absolutely fine, and then I'll watch Doctor Who, and there's a Doctor Who episode where there's a quote that basically says, I can't let you die, and there's a thing of like, no one's going to miss you more than I will. And it's like, more than everyone in the universe. Like, yes. And a lot of times I will just break down to that, even though I've been fine. So it's the control of those emotions, and the idea of them being linear, I don't think is possible. And I don't think they ever truly leave, because even somebody that's 20 years, 30 years after the loss of a partner, I think if you got them in the a certain circumstance, some of those things will come back. That denial will come back, that anger will come back, that everything will come back. I mean, I literally threatened God at one point. I don't believe in God, and I threatened God. There was nothing. I was, I mean, when it happened, when she died, I had my self-defense group that I trained, basically just came and got me, yanked me out of my house, and took me to a bar, and then encircled me, and I was like, what is going on? And they just went, we are just making sure that nobody else comes anywhere near you, because we don't know how to control you. Like, we can see that you're not okay. Like one of my students said that even from the moment I said hello to him after my wife died, that something was broken. And yeah, it's that kind of, yeah.
I mean, it can be. I was actually just talking about this with Bite the other day. Well, I say the other day, and it could be like a month ago. All right, could be yesterday, could be an hour ago. It doesn't matter. Time means nothing. But it's like one little thing can just bring stuff right back. Like it'll just bring things right back to whatever it was. And yeah, it depends on the person how they're going to react to that. And Bites brought this up before, but she said a previous therapist told me stages of grief are often presented as linear, but they're not. They're a spiral. You cycle through them over and over, but the periods between shifts get longer. And I've heard it described as waves too, where it's like sometimes the waves are calmer and it's a long time between each wave, and sometimes they're crashing. And however you want to describe it, I think that it's a very personal process.
Yeah, and I think that depends. The idea of them getting longer, I think, also depends on any other mental health issues that you have. Because I had suicidal depression before my wife. And so I think when you mix those two together, it isn't that necessarily that long in between them. And it can then go from short to long and everything else, because there's my head's fucked up already. This is just an extra thing, like playing Buckaroo. It's just added to that pile.
So what did you do to get you through that time? I mean, you said that there were people who were there supporting you, but what did you do?
I didn't. I planned my own death. A mix of other things got me through. The dog that me and my wife had at the time, knowing that there were some people still wanting me around. The promise I made to my wife, and then I've talked about before. I came onto Twitch because I effectively had voices in my own head, and I wanted other voices that weren't mine. So I came onto Twitch and just randomly went through just some channels, and I found 5 channels. Only one of them still exists, but there were 5 channels that I came across that made me smile when I couldn't. And whilst they were not the thing that helped, that did it by themselves, because it was such an effort of everything coming together, if any singular bit had not been there, I wouldn't be. If my dog had stayed with my in-laws, if one of those streamers hadn't been streaming that day, if I hadn't heard from one of my students that day, whatever, if one of those things had been missing, I would be. Because it is 2 years and 1 week to the day that I was not going to be here. That was it. I was done. It wasn't a question. We were in lockdown, and the UK lockdown was lockdown. We weren't allowed to leave the house. And that's the thing as well, is my wife died, then we went into lockdown, and she died at home, which meant I was legally made to stay in the house in which she had died in.
Wow.
So I lived in my office. In my house. I didn't want to go to our bed. I didn't want to go into the lounge because that was where we cuddled up. I didn't want to go to our second room because that was her room. I didn't want to go to our third bedroom because that's where she died. So even our upstairs bathroom, I tried not to go to, because that was literally being fixed when she on her downturn, because that was the bathroom she had just employed someone to do up. So I just made a plan, and that I was done. I had no qualms about it. It was just going to happen. There was no one's going to find me because it was locked down, and so no one's going to know until it's too late. By which time the dog would have probably eaten my body. Like I was done. And then a mixture of all these things together meant that the day came and went. And actually one of the people I brought on board for my charity for mental health is one of the people from one of those channels. I've been in contact with them all the way through, because I stayed on Twitch, and then I became somehow, this angry Brit that, isn't afraid to get in people's face, suddenly went against a lot of what I think at the time Twitch mental health was. And so it just kind of carried on.
Bite Mark would like to know what Buckaroo is.
Do you not have it? Oh, so maybe it's just called a different name. So it's a kids game that it's like a donkey, and it's you put little like plastic things on it, like a satchel, something else. And the idea is you keep putting it on, and the person that loses is when you put the item on and it bucks. So it's Buckaroo, it bucks up. So I always talk about mental health as being is that you have your final point of bucking, but you don't know how many other things have been put on board yet. All you see is them losing it, whatever's happening, but you don't see the fact that they've had the fucking rest of the world put on them.
Yeah. No, we don't. I have not seen that here. And now I feel the need to get it for my children.
It's a fun game. It is a fun game.
I'll have to find it for sure. So you talked about the promise that you made to your wife to help raise money for Brain Trust. And what kinds of things have you been doing to raise money for Brain Trust?
So Brains Trust, by the way.
Brains Trust, yes.
Just because there's two. So the first thing I did when lockdown happened, I bought a rowing machine, and everything was cancelled. But physical stuff was the thing that seemed obvious. So no one was doing marathons, but there was still the idea of that, and I just went, well, I'll row. So the first thing I did was I rowed for 24 hours and 24 minutes. Then there was a very kind of all-inclusive thing for raising money that a lot of charities in the UK did, which was do 30 miles of either running, cycling, or rowing over a month. So, do 1 mile a day. And it was a way of getting people into it. And I just went, that's not a challenge. That's not me. I can't ever match the challenges my wife went through, but I'll fucking try. So I decided, no, I'll do 30 miles of rowing, 30 miles of running, 30 miles of cycling, but I'm going to do it in one day. So I did 90 miles in total in 17 hours, something. Last year I did 15 marathons in 15 days. And I've done streams to raise money and all things like that. And I keep trying to just find something more to do. Like I Great North Run, which is a half marathon, and just different events. Yeah, just keep trying to do that. And if there's an event out there, if there's something out there that sounds ridiculous, I'll do it. If it's a challenge that's physically possible, I will find a way to do it, because there's no challenge that I can ever do that's ever going to match or come close to the challenges she faced. So
yeah, absolutely. This reminds me a lot of Rissa. Have you ever talked to Rissa?
She's been on my podcast a couple of times.
Yeah, she's great, and some of the stuff that she's done is really inspiring as well. So what? And I know that we're going to run out of time again, so we'll start it back up, and we can talk about the charity again maybe one more time. But what made you take that leap and start the Up for Mental Health charity?
I think I'd always kind of had the idea I'd worked for charities before as well. My first job out of university as an undergrad was working as a fundraiser for a national charity. And I knew I could do it. I think is that I had now granted we had to relaunch because there's stuff that went wrong, but from the time of me having the idea to us launching originally was 2 weeks. And I'm like, I don't like the way it's the way that those kind of things drag along and all that kind of stuff. And I still don't believe that mental health has moved at all in 30 years. I think there's a lot of talk that has moved, and a lot of people can say how wonderful it's moved, but it's all bullshit. it hasn't moved. Policy has not changed anywhere. And so I was like, it's similar to what I was like at university. It's the idea of, well, deal with me instead. My first degree and master's was politics and political theory. I was an elected politician in the UK. I can talk the way I need to, and I can be that I can deal in those quarters if I need to, but I can also be a bulldozer. And whenever I see heads of charities, especially when it comes to mental health, on talk shows, on things like that, they're always polite. They get shit on all the time, and they always just answer back very politely, and I'm just like, you know what? Fuck that. No, I'm done letting neurotypical set the goddamn boundaries. They've spent decades and centuries effectively ignoring our existence, and then set the boundaries for our entrance into a world that they think is appropriate, even though for the vast numbers of people, we don't work within it, and it doesn't suit us. You can't just keep trying to fit us in the same hole. Fuck you. And so I think when I went with the idea of doing the charity is, one, I wanted to help people create their own therapies and stuff as well was one thing, but also I always had the image of after being active for a year or two, when people know our names, that's when we start to do policy. And I've said to my trustees, and I've said to people before, is at the moment, I want to be as little involved as I can. Like, I will still be a voice, and I do podcasts, so I can be the voice on the radio or whatever. But I'm not getting involved until then, because in a year or two, when we start to deal with policy and we start to deal with politicians, then I'm coming forwards, and then I'll deal with them.
You're the big gun.
Not so much the big gun. I'm the one that doesn't care. And it's the same. And I've said this before. I'm going to say it on here, just in case there's any chance of it. Piers Morgan, Nigel Farage, Tucker Carlson, any of you actually have the balls to have a continued full conversation and interview with someone that will answer you back and don't just walk off stage like a fucking idiot, have me on. chair@upformentalhealth.org. Chair for upformentalhealth.org. Email me and I'll be on your show tomorrow in the morning. I don't care, because unlike you, I don't need the goddamn prep time for 50 people to make sure you can try and get one over on me, because I'm actually going to talk the truth, and I don't give a shit about the way that you're going to talk to me, because I will talk back. It's not the case that I'm going to sit there and be meek because you think that you can lord it over us because we aren't what you think we should be. Fuck that. And I think that's one of the major reasons, is that I saw everyone else kowtowing to how neurotypicals and those that didn't believe in mental health and those that wanted to step down from it, I saw that continually happening. And I just went, I'm done with this. If no one else is going to do it, it shouldn't be on me, but fuck it, I'll do it too. Like, I will step forward, and hopefully someone else will step forward with me. And in the end, it's going to be a whole goddamn line of us going, now deal with all of us. And I think that was part of the point as well.
Yeah. I might actually watch any of those people if you're on. Yes. Yeah. Right. Hey, but see, the problem with that is then they would have to actually face the truth, and they don't like to do that on those shows. So.
That's the thing. I mean, if you look at Piers Morgan, he was held up once on British TV, where the fucking weatherman, all he said was, you stepped out of line on that when he was talking about mental health. Piers Morgan walked off stage. Yeah. Because none of them have the goddamn balls to stand up against it.
No,
and I've said this before, and we've had it from politicians, because I don't care. I've always had this. I do not care about calling people out, because I only call people out when I know I'm in the right and when I can fucking prove it. Like, I've said this before, there is an MP in the UK called Natalie Elphick, who, after Marcus Rashford, one of our football players, missed a penalty, basically had to go at him because he'd been too involved in politics, because he was trying to feed young people. He was basically, because he'd come from a disadvantaged family and everything like that. And she just went, maybe if you spent more time on dealing with football, you wouldn't have missed that penalty. Basically, it was a racist attack at him and told him to stay in his lane. Told him to stay in his lane. And my immediate response of her saying that is, I went to the same university as this MP. I studied politics. She studied law, which means she's now a politician. If anything, she's in my lane. Fuck off out of mine. Like, I don't care about who I'm going to talk to like that. I will call them out if they're talking shit. I will answer back. I don't care. And this is why, and I'm almost certain that despite the relatively small audience that I've come across, no matter where I am, I'm almost certain that one of these morons has probably had some inkling of my name somewhere, because someone would have done it. Someone would have just put it on a YouTube thing or something. But none of them have the balls to do it. None of them will, even though I'm the head of a charity in the UK, none of them will do it because none of them are prepared to actually have someone who won't get prepped by their media people, that won't accept the, oh, give me this stuff. No, just have me on. I don't want your prep. I don't want that. Just talk to me and let's see what fucking happens then.
Yeah. All right, we're going to restart this one more time. We'll come back. I want to talk specifically about the charity and kind of what went into that. So I'll restart this. We'll be right back again. All right, here we go. I think I probably just don't know how Zoom really works, and that's part of the problem.
I have a premium membership and you don't. I think it's why I get longer things. It's very money grabbing.
Yeah, that's kind of a bummer. But that's okay, because now we can kind of like just pivot a little bit and talk really about the charity. So just tell us about what is Up for Mental Health. What is that as a charity?
Yeah, so I mean, with Up for Mental Health, we obviously still embrace the traditional parts of dealing with mental health. So talking therapies, medications, everything like that. One of the biggest differences, I think, with us is that our main way of interacting is to have online resources. So we have about 15 to 20 at the moment, because we only relaunched 2-3 weeks ago. And we're looking to have it at around 100 by the end of the year. And I say around, I mean 100 or over, not below. And with that, we have different things. So we'll have the normal meditations and guided meditations. We'll have breathing exercises that are put on there that are made for us. These aren't things we've randomly grabbed off YouTube. We'll have those on there for people that are looking at that more calming side of things. Despite the way I act, I am a meditation teacher. Those are from me, those guided meditations. So we do have that more traditional stuff. We've had certain musical pieces that have been created for us that are on there that may help people be calm and be able to center themselves there. Beyond that, we also have things like lessons on how to break fall for martial arts. We have how to get into swing dance. And we're looking for someone to introduce how to do D&D games. And then on top of that, we also have people's journeys. So RJ, who you had on a week or two ago.
Yeah, from Untapped Gang.
Because RJ is a trustee of Up for Mental Health as well. And so RJ's story and his journey is also on the website, so that people can see that this is someone's journey who's going through it as well. This is not that this is going to be your journey. It's just to show you, look, this can happen. People can still get through their journeys, and there may be some comparisons that you find helpful, but it's to allow people to create an idea of therapy and of support going forward for themselves, because I think we underestimate just how much a hobby or an interest or a passion can really help our mental health. We talked about the fact that runners often are those that are doing it for their own mental health. And their biggest help is running. That is what has done it. They don't go to therapy, they don't take medications, but they run excessively, and that running helps them. And so, okay, let's see how the running can then help other people get into running. Is this something that will be good for you? Is it possible that getting into dance, because there's been a lot of studies on that, How does dance interact with it? Well, let's speak to Leah, who's who's our treasurer. Well, she's done a video on introducing people to swing dance, and talks about how her mental health was helped for that after suffering from agoraphobia after the pandemic hit. And then, of course, we have people like Christophe Courtin, who is a clinical hypnotherapist here in the UK, who does breathing exercises. So we do have that standardized thing as well. But the idea is that there's no charge for this stuff. This isn't something that we're going to go, right, now there's a paywall. Like, fuck off. Right. Like, you come onto our website.
You're not Zoom.
Yeah. It's like, it's not the case that we're going to go, or YouTube. We're not going to put a random ad halfway through a meditation session. So it's not that we're going, go and randomly find this stuff. This is stuff that we've collated, that is made for us, that you can come on and use as you need to. We've categorized it so that it's something that you can interact with. What do you think would be helpful to you? Would it be that actually something really simple like, well, the fact that I can't cook, or I don't know how to cook, or I don't have recipes, that really affects my mental health because I can't feed the kids, and that's affecting you way more than you'd expect. But okay, well, let's do here's some cookery videos. Here's some really simple how to deal with cooking on a budget. This is how we deal with it. There's a mental health charity in the UK called Mind, who do lessons like that for people a lot. And so let's do a video on that. Let's do a few videos on that. That'd be something for you to start in, and then help you grow and better your own mental health with that. And so we've got that side of it. Of course, we are looking to also interact with people locally. So the idea is to have groups such as walking groups, have well-being groups where people can do arts and crafts, or just have a chat with each other and have a support network. On top of that, have martial arts lessons, and have different things going on around the UK. That's what we're hoping to start to set up around the UK when we know what is best for different areas. It's a similar kind of idea as in the States, because you have 50 states, we have 48 counties. So it's the same kind of setup as to where we do things. It's just seeing what's best for that specific area. And then on top of that, we also want to introduce check-in boxes as well, which is basically, there's a few people I want to talk to about getting that set up, and to basically get stuff for free to put in these boxes, because fuck you for charging a charity. So the idea is to actually have if someone is suffering autism, okay, well, then we might have, in their child, we might have stims that we put in that box. If there's someone that's just going through depression, they have nothing else, but they like to write, okay, well, let's get a journal sent out to you. If, for instance, we talk about D&D, they're a D&D enthusiast and they're suffering anxiety, depression, anything like that, and they want to just write, well, you know what? There's a company out there, which I will be contacting you, Heroes Quest, called Heroes Quest, who do a journal that it's basically written to make your goals and your journal going forward into an adventure game. So there are things out there that we want to then have that happen as part of the charity as well. We're also currently having a practitioner in mindfulness course accredited. So that's going to be accredited internationally and by us specifically in the UK. So we're going to be offering that to people so that we can start up groups for mindfulness across the UK and elsewhere. I wrote the course myself, so it's just getting accredited by a few different places. And then I'm currently in very preliminary talks with universities to see if there's a possibility that we can help get people back into education by offering them free courses of some kind, or free re-entry courses into higher education. So that's the kind of long-term plan. But at the moment we're more focused on the online stuff, but then as we build more and more, that's what we want to do. The more donations we get, the better we can build things. And then further down the line is when, like I say, I get involved and we start trying to change policy and actually get them to do something in government.
Yeah, that's all really cool. That's a lot of different things going on at one time. I'm glad to hear you have people supporting you. I've talked with RJ before, and it sounds like you've got some other really good people who are there and working with you. So that's really good. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff. Someone said D&D. I'm currently moving my D&D books to another shelf. What is needed? Yes, Byte is our D&D expert. Absolutely.
Yeah, hey, if you want to create 3 introductory videos, 5 minutes each, for to helping people getting to D&D, and you send it through to us to edit through, we'll happily have them on the website. Like, as long as we watch through them first, we accept them as as a material, we want to put them up there because a lot of these things as well aren't going to be just one person. So, for instance, I've done one on podcasting because I do a podcast, but that's not just going to be me. I'm also going to ask RJ to do one. I'm going to ask Love for Purpose. I may ask you. I like, because we all have different approaches, and I am well aware that my approach, just in general as a person, isn't necessarily for everyone. And that's the thing as well. But like I say, that I think the big difference for us as well with the charity is we are not a charity that's going to be nice to government or nice to people that want to push back against mental health. Like, I don't care. I think we did a podcast when we relaunched. We did a podcast that went out on YouTube, and I think it was 20 minutes into the podcast. It was me, RJ, and Leah, and it was about 20 minutes in that I just stopped, turned to the camera, and just said, "By the way, if anyone's wondering about the swearing, this is what I'm like normally. This isn't going to change just because I'm the head of a charity. This doesn't change. We are normal people. That's the whole point. Yeah, it's actually what's happening. We're not going to change and augment ourselves according to what you need. That's not happening." Yeah. I mean, you have to get real with things, and sometimes that's the only way to get through to people is to get a little bit more real than they're used to. Well, yeah, I mean, when I worked at a university, it was always interesting because I worked in the business school, and one of the things that always got to the other staff, because they were very, very proper about things, and I just didn't care, and I didn't care with the senior management team of the university either. We'd have students come in, and I remember having a student come in once, and he'd been a pain for a lot of the other ones, and I just got up and said, "Right, I'm gonna fucking deal with this stuff." And his girlfriend was with him, and he was just saying stupid shit, and I literally just turned to his girlfriend and just went, "Can you slap him for me, because I'm not allowed?" And he just laughed. They both laughed. The rest of the office was freaking out, but they laughed, and then we got it sorted. But it's that, like, because every email that he'd had was, "Dear," very prim and proper. Yeah. And I just went, "Look, mate, let's deal with this, because if we go back and forth, because you're not engaging with it like that, and I don't blame you. If I see, and I've said this before, I think if anyone ever wants to get me on their podcast and you start your message with 'Dear,' I'm deleting the email before I end of a sentence. It's not happening, because, like, dear no, fuck off. Like, that's not how you interact with me. No. Because that is a letter, that's a formal letter. The only time I'm going to read that is if you're writing to it as a charity, because it's the standard thing. If you're writing to me as Up for the Challenge, you go, "Dear Up for the Challenge." Think about how that fucking sounds, people. I am up for the challenge. That's my name. Dear Up for the Challenge? Really? No. Like, so yeah, I think that is something I really don't feel. Even the charities that I really like and engage with and chat to, I don't think they still don't do that. They're still so scared of not getting grants, of having to deal with certain things. And I just don't care. I will find a way, some way of making it work, because that's the difference. Is like everything we've done so far. We have 15 to 20 resources. We have 6 resources we're currently waiting on. We're going to get more resources in the future. They've all been volunteered because we've been able to go over them. We've all had them because people will give their time for good causes. But of course, everyone's immediate thought is, well, we've got to raise this money. Yes, we do have to raise money if we want to do things out and about more. But that's not going to stop me now. I can still make things happen now. We're getting courses accredited. We're making sure that our trustees are themselves accredited in certain things. Like, I can do that now. One of the things I did for charity, and I didn't mention, one of the challenges I did was there was teams of us, but we had no money. We had no money for food, no money for accommodation, no money for travel, none at all. And if anyone gave us money in any way, that had to go to the charity as a donation. And we had 36 hours, and we had to get as far away as possible within 36 hours. So people had to either buy us a ticket or give us food. If they gave us money that was donation to the charity, I got from the southeast of England to Tel Aviv in Israel for free, and ate well, and someone bought me a place to stay when I was out there. Like, you can do these things. They're not impossible. They're not impossible. It's just that people won't. And I think that's one of the biggest differences, is that I will just bulldoze through it. Somebody will end up listening. Someone will. And the one kind of, I think, controversial thing that I've said to people before is that I don't care about using controversial people to get that stuff done. So if there are MPs in Parliament that are complete pieces of shit, I will happily use them to get our policy forward and to get things moving forward, because they're who's there. Everyone else can scream and shout about whether they're a piece of shit and they're going to be voted out in the next election. That's not relevant if we've just had an election and we've got to deal with this prick for 4 years. That's who we've got to deal with. If you're just going, oh, well, we want this to change, great. So you're going to do fuck all for 4 years? No, this is who we've got to deal with. Now, they are not going to find that I reciprocate anything. I'm not going to do anything for them. I've not given them the idea of I'm going to do anything for them. And you know what? I might even campaign against them. I might even stand against them in an election. But if I can use them to get stuff, I will do so. And I think probably my time in politics is why I'm like that, is that I don't have any qualms about that, when I think some people do. And it's like, no, if I can use an idiot to get it done, I will do. You know, good people exist in politics, but they have to be ruthless bastards. And that's kind of what I feel I was in politics. But there are still dickheads there, but they can still be used by the good guys. So I will do. And I think that's the difference with us as a charity, is there is no, this can't be done. There is no, we've got to be nice. There's none of this. I don't believe in nice. I believe in it getting fucking done.
Yeah. No, that's a great attitude to have. But I mean, a lot of people will say it's not a great attitude to have, but it really is. Whenever you're wanting to get real and connect with people who really need it, that is a great attitude to have. It's realistic, and you're kind of facing what you need to face. So when you were starting this up, you mentioned you had to relaunch it. What were some of the biggest challenges that you faced? And then whenever you relaunched, what were some of your biggest wins and takeaways from that?
There was a stupid rule. It was the banks, basically. It was the banks. So it was a stupid thing in the way that the banks wanted to set it up, even though it was against the Charities Commission, which oversees it in the UK. They were at loggerheads. They didn't. Their way of doing things didn't agree with each other, and it took me another 6 months to go, okay, what the fuck? And we've actually had issues now restarting it, but we've managed to get around them this time. But yeah, that was the biggest. It was the banks, nothing else. It was just the banks being dicks. But I mean, this time round was the fact that we had other issues with the banks this time, but we managed to get around them. We found the loop of going, right, we can still do this. Because I was like, you know what? I had 6 months of fighting this. Not this time. This time it's happening now. I don't care. I will walk into the goddamn central office. I don't care. It is happening now. And so I was fully prepared, because I still have some friends in Parliament. I was fully prepared to just go to Parliament or the Lords and just go, you know what? I'm going to call in a favour. So I was, we were able to find ways to actually make it work this time. I think that was a big thing. And the fact that we could get, like I said, we relaunched 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we've got 15, 20 resources up already. We've got that in place. My resource from my site as Up for the Challenge is the one that is used for the charity. And you will find that my resources are probably the most reused by other people on Twitch, including mental health people. Mindset by Dave, Wabba streams, all use my resources.
Oh, that's great.
Northwolf 911. There are a lot of people, and so I think that's one of our big things as well, is that these are recognizable resources, and they are recognized enough that other people that are doing these. Mindset for Dave, for instance, he works with the NHS. He's very well respected and is award winning, and so it's a very good show of respect and understanding that he is using them. And so I think that's one of the big wins for us as well, is that very quickly we've still been seen as like, okay, this can be done. And I did have some people when we were kind of starting it off just went, I think that the nice thing for my own ego, because we all have egos, deal with it. I don't care whether people say you don't, you do, shut up. Was when I had people say to me, like, if it wasn't you doing this, I don't think it would get off the ground. Mm-hmm. But because it's you, I know that you're just going to keep going until they break, not you.
You're going to make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that was kind of the more success stuff for us. Yeah.
That's great. Is your family supportive of what you do?
They don't really know. I mean, they do know, but they don't really like. I'm not a family person. I know that's probably sounds really weird to a Texan, but
I'm a huge family person. Like I spent all day yesterday with my family.
I don't get that at all. I don't understand why we need to. Like there's no. To me, family's another thing, and I say this to people they interact with on Twitch as well, because they'll have very toxic families, but their family has told them, because every family tells them that they're your family, you've got to do it. And I say, no, I
disagree with that. Yeah, I disagree with that. You know, strongly.
So it's just like no, just because they're your family doesn't mean you have to interact with them. And so, but they've all been indoctrinated into it. And there's massive swaths of my family that I just don't talk to. I haven't done for decades, including brothers and sisters. So it's like, no, you know what? I talk to my mum. One sister, one brother, and I'm one of 13. And my niece, and that's about it. I don't really talk to anyone else because I don't need to. Like I don't feel any real connection or need to talk to anyone else, because I'm nearly 40. I don't need them to come and wipe my ass anymore. I'm not reliant and dependent on that. I do have family members I have my niece who follows me on Twitch. That saying niece makes them sound a lot younger than they are. They're like in the 20s.
Yeah.
But
it's like calling my baby sister. My baby sister, she's about to turn 30.
I'm the baby brother. But I'm 40. But yeah, I mean, they follow me on TikTok, where I do the mental health stuff as well, and they interact with that quite a bit. So yeah, I do have family members that if they know about it, they'll interact. My mother's quite good on it nowadays. Despite the fact that my mum is, born during the Second World War, so of a generation that you wouldn't think really got it, she's got a lot better, and I think she's really kind of gets it as much as she can do now. So that's been good. She's actually been on my podcast as well. It's the one podcast where I started at the beginning and just went, "Yes, guys, you're quite right. I will not be swearing during it." Because she's very old. Because I'm from a very kind of middle class south of England family. Like my voice now is actually dulled down because I sound to many people too posh, basically. Because so I'm from that kind of background, and so my mother's very kind of no, you can't swear in front of the vicar. So that was very much for my mother when she came on, but no, she's got a lot better and more understanding of things. And I think she's also recognized in herself that she's gone through stuff and not really recognized that she was going through stuff as well. So I think it depends on the interaction, really.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a very strong believer. I am a big family person. I have people in my family who I do not speak to. Like, that is a valid thing. Just because you were born into a family. So everybody likes to say, "Oh, blood's thicker than water." You got to finish that. It's the blood of the coven is thicker than the water of the womb.
Not true.
And so it's not true.
No, this is the things of my mental health coming through here. It's not true. It was made up. So if you can go back onto the original quote is "blood is thicker than water." The added on stuff only really started circulating in the early 2000s. It was coming out of, I think the furthest back you can get it is about 1974. Came from Germany. From a very bad attempt at a translation, but the original one, "blood is thicker than water," can be easily traced back to around the 1100s at worst. So much as I agree with the sentiment, I don't like to use that, because it's always a way that if someone like me who knows the truth, but on the other side of the argument, it kind of undermines the argument. But yeah.
Well, I mean, so etymology aside, like, if there are toxic people in your family, you can have a chosen family. You can absolutely say, like, I am choosing to have this person as a sister. And if y'all are, considering each other family, then they're fucking family. Like, that's the deal. That's it. So you don't have to you don't have to like every person in your family. You don't have to hang out with every person in your family. Not every person in our family comes to our monthly lunches. But the people who do show up, that's the family. Like, those are the ones, So I am a huge family person, but I absolutely agree. If there is someone toxic, you do not have to stay with them just because you were born a blood relation to them. You don't have to at all. You can cut them out. Toxic is toxic, whether they're related to you or not. So
absolutely. I barely talk to my friends, let alone my family. So. I've always said this. I'm an incredibly private person. So my friends don't know where I live. People always find that one strange, but to me, my friends and my home life aren't the same thing. My friends are people I see out and about, or people I talk to online. They are not people that come into my house. This is my space.
That's your space,
So it's not that. So I don't even talk to friends, and they don't know things about me. So I'm not going to tell some random person that just happens to be the sister's next door neighbor's brother's auntie's hairdresser of my mum. Like, I don't fucking care.
We tend to give our hairdressers all the story. It's true. It's a stereotype, but it's true. The hairdressers get all of it. I wasn't a family person for many years. There are parts of my family that I still don't talk to. The ones I do talk to are cool, though. Yes, yeah, exactly. You don't have to talk to everybody.
Approach to family, the Vin Diesel approach. Go and rob a truck with him and your family.
That's true. I mean, we've had a lot of family drama, and so out of that family drama, like there are legitimately large portions of the family that have been kind of cut off. So. But like you can still pick and choose from that side of the family, because I was just texting with one of them earlier today. so if there's still people you want to cut a whole branch of your family tree, cut that limb off, no problem. Pick up that branch and just like graft it onto another part of the tree. No big deal. It's fine.
Yeah.
So we've talked about kind of your mental health journey and the mental health charity and resources and everything. Do you currently have a mental health care provider?
You mean somebody like a therapist for me?
Like a therapist, yeah.
No.
Why
not? Because I find them more damaging to me than I do helpful.
No, that's fair. Have you just had bad experiences with them in the past?
No, I just whenever. So it's that kind of, they're just talk of a script. I found this from every single one, personally for me. But I think part of that is that I've also been educated in psychology and in counseling stuff and in masters so I am kind of seeing the same hymn sheet, and that's the problem. So, I think this is why a lot of people occasionally turn to their friends and go, you know what, let's just have a chat. And that's why I always say to people, like, reach out to someone, like have a chat with so they're like the emergency lines that you can ring up. Sometimes they're far better than a therapist. They're not necessarily people you should talk to all the time. But again, England and America have a different way of looking at therapy. We don't see it as something you necessarily have all the time. America does. So the idea of therapy being all the time here is, it just doesn't make sense to us. It's just not, like, it's not a thing. So, but we might be able to go, okay, well, let's do a few counseling sessions, and I feel okay now, so I won't bother. And I think those lines that you can ring up, a lot of the time, those are just normal people that have happened to had some training on being able to talk to you. And so they can be a lot better sometimes, because they will talk to you like a person, and they don't have the same, historical, psychological baggage that therapists and counselors do. So they'll just talk to you like a person. They're not holding on to any of that baggage. And I think that's the problem. And I just don't feel that any of them would be helpful to me. They haven't been in the past. I just don't feel that they would be something that I interact with, which, is the case for many people. It's the same way as medication doesn't work for everyone. Talking therapy doesn't work for everyone. In the same way that I use running and martial arts as a big part of my kind of personal therapy and support. That's not going to be what someone else does, because the second somebody else goes and tries that, they're going to be like, fuck this, what are you doing? And it's the same thing. Yeah, exactly. So it's the same thing that, it's just what the personal preference is. And for me, that became an intimate, an automatic thing that my body did when I was younger. So I've just carried it on. It's been the most useful to me, whereas other parts just aren't, Yeah.
We actually talked about that just recently on If the Couch Did Speak. It's a podcast, Happy Little Brains runs it. Jessica Medina is fantastic. If you haven't listened to that podcast, it's in the Discord. Go check it out. But we talked about that therapy is not forever, and that it's okay to go like for a month and then to just check in after 6 months. And the idea of, I think it's good. I personally think it's a good idea to check in at least every 6 months with your therapist if you're a therapy going person, just as like a wellness check. You go to your dentist twice a year, check in with your therapist twice a year kind of thing. But we talked about that thing that people have, that preconceived notion that therapy should be forever. Once you're in therapy, you're never going to get out of it. And it doesn't have to be. If you need 3 sessions to go and just say, hey, I just need to talk through some shit, go to your therapist and talk through some shit and then stop going. Like, set your goals with your therapist and be very clear about that up front. I think that that's a great way to do it. And therapy doesn't have to be forever. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I say, it's a very different approach that you guys have than we do, because it's just a very, I think we historically, the British upper, stiff upper lip type thing. It's just that, well, no, we'll carry on. Fuck you. And I think that's just permeated into our ideas of therapy and stuff as well. So that's why we just don't deal with it like that as well.
Yeah. All right. So we are on the magic moment question, and I have a magic wand. And this magic wand, I'm going to wave. I have to turn it on first for it to actually work. Oh my God. I thought it wasn't going to turn on. It's going to be so sad. It's rainbow. There we go. Now you can see it in its full glory. So I'm going to wave this, and you get the power to eliminate one common opinion or misconception or theory surrounding mental illness, disabilities, or talking about mental health. So what is that going to be? And I'll just give this little wave and give you this power. There you go.
Oh God, right. I mean, there's so many more than one. The neurotypicals get to rule the world. That idea that just because you don't have mental health issues, you get to be in charge, because it's racism on mental health. It's basically going, I am this way, so I get to rule. That's what it is. And people never understand it like that, because we ignore the people that kill themselves. We ignore all the people that suffer, despite the fact that in the UK, for instance, the biggest killer of men under 40 is suicide, by far. But you never hear that. You hear about, liver disease, lung disease, heart attacks. You will constantly hear about that. But by far, the biggest killer of men under 40 in the UK is suicide. And that's also the biggest killer of men under 40 in Australia, in most of Europe, in Africa, in Asia. I think it is in Canada as well. Unfortunately, in the US, it's actually guns. But, this is one of the biggest killers, full stop. And yet we ignore it because it doesn't fit the narrative of, well, we're in charge. And so if you fit in with us, you're okay. No, that's the same bullshit that was said for a long time in different parts of the world to subjugate other people for whatever reason it was, whether because of their sex, their gender, their race, whatever it was the same logic that was used to subjugate other people. But we ignore it. We completely ignore it, and then just go, oh yeah, but it's not the same. It's like, it is a way that people have been subjugated, pushed aside, not understood, actively told that they are in the wrong, that they are crazy, and forced to a point at which they want to kill themselves. I don't know how different that really is. And I think the idea that they should have this ruling class elitism with just being neurotypical is just nonsensical.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I'll bust out some of my favorite statistics here, because 1 in 5 people in any given year are going to have some sort of diagnosable mental illness they're struggling with. And if you expand that over a lifetime, it's 1 in 2. So if it's not you, it's the person that you're next to. It's somebody in your life. So that means that 100% of people are impacted by mental illness across their lifetime. And why are we letting other people, act like that's not the case? Because It absolutely is, and it's just so ignored and swept under the rug, and that's a great one. Absolutely, yes. Yeah, Mike says if you want to eliminate more than one, you have to come on more than once. True.
It is just we pretend like things that this didn't used to exist in my day, and it's like, yeah, it did. We just never named
totally did.
The amount of people that go, well, my granddad didn't ever talk about things. He just got on with it. Would that be the granddad that never spoke about anything beyond before, like from his 20s, his 30s, sat in the corner, didn't like to interact with people, drank at least one whiskey a day, and just reminisced about the past? Would that be the one that clearly had some kind of form of PTSD from being in a war? That granddad, yeah? So we didn't know what that was. Fuck off. We always had mental health issues. It's that we didn't want to give it a name, because you have people like Patton, who is known for effectively shouting at people when they had PTSD in wartime, because that was the bullshit that he was brought up with and that he was pushed forward. So we've had that for too long. And like I said earlier, that's why it needs people just to stand there and go, enough. That's it. We're done with your bullshit. Like, and it's that's when we get onto my theories on trigger warnings, because there's trigger warnings is, again, people that don't have mental health issues gatekeeping the things that people with mental health issues get to talk about. That's what that is. That's what trigger warnings is. It's basically going, we want to talk about something. We want you to be able to talk about stuff, but over there, away from us. And if you want to talk about something, we're going to tell everyone not to come in, because we don't want you to disturb everyone. So fuck off. Like that's what it is. The idea, you can't police what a trigger warning truly is, because you'll assume what every trigger warning always is around rape, murder, self-harm. That's what it always is. What if someone's gone through neglect, gone through continued abuse as a child, and their one thing that they helped them all the way through was a teddy bear? Now there's a teddy bear in the back of your shot. Well, that's probably more triggering to them than anything else. But we don't trigger warning that, because it doesn't fit the narrative of neurotypicals. That's what my issue is with it as well. But I could go on for about 50 hours on that. So yeah.
Well, and I mean, I think also the problem with trigger warnings is the same thing as someone saying, "Oh, don't talk about suicide. You're going to put suicidal thoughts into someone's head." It's not true. You're not going to put suicidal thoughts into someone's head. They're already there. You talking about it. Yeah, you talking about it could actually.
Gay people.
Yeah,
it's the exact same argument they do.
Yeah.
They're just going to go, "Oh, we've mentioned the word gay, therefore they're all gay now."
Yes,
in that case,
absolutely.
Then I think there may be something you need to identify in yourself, not everyone else.
Yeah.
That's the problem, is that, we say a word and suddenly it's going to be, it's such nonsense. It's because they don't want free thought. They don't want free thought, because free thought means they're not in charge anymore. And they don't want that. And it's the same way, again, all oppression has always existed. They didn't want people to push back. They don't want people free thought. Think about the suffragette movement. The only reason the suffragette movement got started in the UK, this is a really weird trivia fact, but the only reason the suffragette movement actually started going in the UK is because of afternoon tea. Because before afternoon tea, a man always basically had to be with his wife, and she could not leave the house unless she was accompanied by a man, all that kind of stuff. Afternoon teas were brought around, and that meant that they could send out invitations to people, which meant they met in private. Then we had tea shops that opened, which meant women could go there by themselves, and they started to meet together. That's where they started to get the ideas of suffragette, and that's where the movement moved forward. But that's what they're frightened of. They're frightened of people coming together that actually have a voice that isn't theirs. And it's the same as any other movement. It's something they're scared of, and that needs to be pushed back into their own face.
Yeah, I agree. Mondrian says our healthcare plans generally give us a finite number of mental health sessions. Yes. Maybe they're looking to other countries and they're more limited therapy time spans for a few sessions to endless appointments. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Going back to what we were talking about earlier. Yep.
Yeah. No, there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is the idea of a finite number and not having a properly regulated formula to go forward. And then if you do have one, it's $200-300 a session or something, as opposed to actually having something in place that helps people. Again, because it's a productivist society where you don't care about the individual, you care about the product, because there is in no way whatsoever is America capitalist. It just isn't. Productivist.
Yeah, I mean, if you're given 5 sessions and you need 6, that's not really going to work for you. But yeah, I agree. Yeah. Well, okay, so I'm going to open it up to you and just say, is there anything we didn't talk about that you wanted to make sure to mention, or anything? I am going to post your socials one more time here before we wrap up. So if anybody needs to connect with you, they're welcome to. I'm going to put those in the chat right now.
I don't think there's much more. I mean, I could have obviously gone and talked more about my wife and my own background, but that may have just ended up 2 hours of me crying. So it may have been better we didn't. but I don't think there's particularly anything. Just if you are someone that's a creative, if you want to help, please let us know. If you follow us on Twitter for Up For Mental Health, that's probably the best place to know what we're doing. We post there regularly. If you want to follow me along, for instance, the biggest one I know, people have issue with my swearing, especially in America. So if you're thinking of something you want to show your gran or your kids, my YouTube channel that's Up For Mental Health MH. If you go into there, that is a safe for work one. I don't swear on there and I don't go beyond anything else. So you can use that for other people. But if you want to just see me interacting like this, my podcast channel is the best one for you as well, or my Twitch, because I read every single message and I will interact with you if you show up.
I so appreciate Adam for joining me today and sharing his incredible journey of resilience and advocacy in the realm of mental health with all of us. His story serves as a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there's potential for growth, transformation, and creating positive change. The work he's doing through his mental health charity is a testament to the power of turning personal pain into a force for good. Remember, mental health is a universal concern, and each of us has a role to play in breaking down barriers, challenging stigmas, and fostering a more compassionate society. Adam's insights have given us a lot to think about, and I hope that you will take away some valuable lessons from this conversation today. If you're looking for ways to connect with Adam and learn more about his work, be sure to check out the link to our website in the show notes. There's lots of information and resources on his personal page on the website that can help you connect with him. And as always, if you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback helps me continue to bring you meaningful content that resonates with you and also helps me reach more people. Thank you for being a part of our podcast community and for joining me on this journey of understanding, empathy, and growth. Until next time, remember that even when things fall apart, there's always the opportunity to rebuild, learn, and love. Because as we always say, even tacos fall apart and we still love them, and I still love you. Take care and keep the conversations going. Goodbye for now.